Okay, we have been working in Unit 3. Unit 3 is called Proportionality, Ratios, and Rates. So this whole unit has been about proportionality. We've been learning about ratios and rates. And the last thing we're going to learn about is percents. So Unit 3 has Module 6, Module 7, and now we're going to start Module 8, which is the last module in Unit 3 on proportionality. Okay, so Module 8 is called Percents. And Module 8 has 3 lessons. The first lesson we're going to start today. The first lesson is called Understanding Percents. Okay, so get your packet out, turn the page to lesson 8.1, and we'll get started on understanding percents. All right, so what is a percent? A percent is actually a ratio. And you know, a ratio is a comparison of 2 numbers. So a percent is a special kind of ratio that compares a number to 100. Okay, so the symbol that we use for percent looks like this. It's a circle, and then a slash, and then another circle. That symbol says percent. Okay, so if you have ratio like 17 to 100, or 17 to 100, or 17 to 100. Remember, you learned 3 ways to write a ratio. Those 3 ratios all compare 17 to 100. Those 3 ratios say 17%, because remember that a percent is a ratio that compares a number to 100. So if you have a number being compared to 100, you have a percent. Okay? So how do we work with percents? So we're going to look at a situation, okay? Remember, with a percent, you're always comparing a number to 100. So 3 basketball players shoot free throws, okay? The ratios comparing how many baskets they make to how many they tried are below. How can we write these ratios as percents? That's the question. How can we write the ratios as percents? So the first player shoots 25 free throws and makes 17 of them. The second player shoots 50 free throws and makes 33 of them. The third player shoots 20 free throws and makes 14 of them, okay? So what we have to do is we have to make a ratio that's comparing a number to 100. So we have to make an equivalent ratio out of 100. So here's a ratio out of 100. So if this player shot 25 and got 17 of them, at this rate, if the player kept going and shot 100, how many would they make? So basically, what percentage is 17 out of 25? So we make an equivalent ratio with 100, and then we have to solve that. Well, you know, to find an equivalent ratio, you have to multiply the top and the bottom times the same number. So 25 times what will give you 100? Well, 25 times 4 will give you 100. Well, that means we have to multiply 17 times 4. And remember, in this module, you are allowed to use your calculator. So you don't have to know what 17 times 4 is. You can just get out your calculator and put in 17 times 4, and you get 68. So what we're going to do here is show this grid has 100 little squares. So we're going to fill in 68 of them. So here's 1, 2, each row has 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to shade in, this is 60. Okay, this is 60 free throws, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is 68 out of 100. Okay, so 17 out of 25 is equivalent to 68 out of 100. So that is 68%. Okay? If we do the same thing with the second player's information, okay, do the same thing with the second player's information. The second player, okay, take a look at the second player. 33 made out of 50. They shot 50 times. They made 33 of them. So we set that equivalent to 100, and then we solve, basically find an equivalent ratio or equivalent fraction. Well, 50 times 2 is 100, so we have to do 33 times 2, which is 66. So this is 66%, 66 out of 100. And we could shade them in again. That's 60, right? And 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 66 out of 100. Okay, that's 66%. Okay, now last player shot 20 times and made 14. What percent is that? Well, 20 times 5 is 100. So multiply 14 times 5. You can look at your multiplication chart or use your calculator. That's 70. So this one is 70%. So you can see this one has the highest percentage of free throw shooting. And this person makes more if out of 100 than everybody else. Okay, so how are fractions, decimals, and percents alike? Well, they all do the same thing. Basically, fractions, decimals, and percents all show part of a whole or part of a total. So a fraction, a decimal, and a percent all tell you a part of something, okay? A percent tells you a part out of 100, all right? The ratio told you 17 out of 25. Now, how can we make the ratio, like we're going to take player 3 above, which was 14 out of 20, okay? And we're going to make it a percent, we're going to make it a fraction, and we're going to make it a decimal, okay? Player above had 14 free throws that they made out of 20 attempted. So the player shot 20 times and made 14. So we're going to make a percent, which we already did, right here. You would take 14 out of 20, set it equal to a ratio out of 100, and then figure out how to find the equivalent, and you would get 70. So in other words, that would be 70%. Okay, let's make a ratio as a fraction. 14 out of 20. And in simplest form, basically, is there a number that can go into 14 and 20 evenly? And yes, there is, because 2 can go into 14 and 2 can go into 20. So if I divide this by 2 and divide this by 2, I end up with 7. 14 divided by 2 is 7. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So that is an equivalent fraction in simplest form. Okay, what about decimal? Well, we already know that 14 out of 20 is the same as 70 out of 100. And 100 is one of our decimal places, right? The 100th place. So that is the same as 0.70, because that 0 right there is in the hundredths place. Okay, so you can make a percent, you can make a ratio into a percent, which you can also find a fraction and a decimal for. They all tell you the same thing, which is part of a whole or part of a total. 70%, 7/10, 0.70, all are the same thing, okay? Part of a whole. So you can use this benchmark chart to give, so you can use this picture of common benchmark percents and fractions to help you make estimates. So this basically tells you 10% is 1/10, 25% is 1/4. 1/3 is the same as 33 1/3%. 1/2 is 50%. 2/3 is 66 2/3%. 3/4 is 75%. And 1/2 is 100%. Okay, and the percent got chopped off there. Okay, so this is your introduction to percents. And it just, the point of this whole lesson is for you to understand that a percent is part of a whole or part of a total. And what we're doing with percents is we're comparing to 100. So anytime we have a comparison, if we put that out of 100, we will get the percent.